Good morning, Patriots. Good morning. Welcome to the what? 281st. I love that sound. I love that sound. Welcome to the 281st consecutive Friday meeting of the East Valley Red Friday Patriots. You know, we are creeping up on that number 300, and we've already got some ladies that are working very diligently on planning for that particular celebration, our 300th. I'm really looking forward to celebrating that with you. You know, it's great to have all of you in attendance this morning, as well as those of you that are viewing our program on YouTube. Welcome, and we hope you'll share our Red Friday story with your family, your friends, neighbors, and especially with members in your circle that are serving in our armed forces. By the way, I did want to mention to you that I am extremely apologetic because last week, October 11, I did not mention the fact that that is the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution was founded on October 11, 1890, during a time that was marked by a revival in patriotism in this country. And I am extremely apologetic for not making mention of that last Friday. By the way, I think that Larry Smith, our videographer back there, has lassoed Fred Hammond. He's got Fred refocused on his duty, which is predominantly that video recording system back there. And at least I have not seen Fred with a weapon in hand guarding the men's room. Nor do I have any idea where Fred may have attached that Bohica patch. For all I know, he may have sewn that to the bottom of his breeches. But, you know, folks, the fall holiday season has arrived, and I wanted to give you a heads up that for the remaining 2.5 months of this year, we have numerous guest speakers that are lined up to deliver some very informative presentations. And the guest speakers I reference are not members of our Red Friday group, but they are very, very active in the veteran community, local, state, and national. And I believe you will enjoy their messages. So I sincerely encourage that all of our Red Friday Patriots help support these upcoming guest speakers with your presence. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Now, I don't know if we have any space junkies in this group other than Dick Broadcorb, but I do know we've got a rocket scientist over here, Dave Helfer. After an 8-year stint in the Navy, Dave worked at Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico for 30 years on some highly secretive projects. Well, the reason I ask about space junkies is that it was this month, October 1958, that President Dwight Eisenhower signed an executive order officially giving birth to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. Prior to October of '58, space flight projects were managed by the Department of Defense. But Eisenhower's executive order transferred all non-military space projects and government appropriations from federal space programs to the newly created civilian-ran NASA, automatically giving NASA a staff of over 8,000 people and a budget of approximately $340 million in 1958. Today, NASA and the newly launched U.S. Space Force have a partnership, and they do work together on numerous projects to include space launches, the sharing of surveillance data to help track and find potential asteroid threats, the sharing of space domain awareness data, the collaboration on human spaceflight, space policy, and space transportation. In fact, both agencies share a common interest in the responsible use of space. Let's take a moment and listen to a musical celebration of early space exploration, a song by Celtic music artist Christoph Clover. Within the song's lyrics, Clover references a couple of characters of Greek mythology to include Prometheus, who is best known for defying the Olympian gods by taking fire from them and giving it to humanity in the form of technology, knowledge, and more generally, civilization. Prometheus is the god of fire. Clover also references Icarus, a character of Greek mythology who is known for flying too close to the sun and dying. And he also references Gagarin. Yogi Gagarin was a Soviet pilot and cosmonaut who, aboard the first successful crewed spaceflight, became the first human to journey into outer space. You will also hear reference to the spacecrafts Apollo, Columbia, and Challenger. Here is Christoph Clover's A Fire in the Sky. Will you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to take this moment and introduce a few guests that we have with us, first-time guests, and we also have a return, but it's been a while since they were here. Harley and Gail, who, would you raise your hands? These are Larry May's daughter and son-in-law. They're here from Minot, North Dakota for a few days. Glad to have you guys with us. How long has it been? A year? More?
About 2 years.
2 years, maybe?
Feels like it.
I believe that was when Larry had a representation of 4 generations, and that was over at the Tumbleweed. Glad to have you guys back with us, very much so. Also, Larry Yana. Larry, I see that you are a Navy veteran, 1975 to 79. You were a fire control tech, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How did you learn about us?
From the fine people right here, my new neighbors.
New neighbors.
Yes.
Are they new or are you new?
I'm new. I
You're new.
moved in about a month ago.
Oh, really? From where?
I've lived in Phoenix since '95, but originally I moved out here from Vermont, and before that I grew up in Illinois.
Glad to have you here in the Mesa area.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here in the Mesa area. Now, you were a fire control technician in the Navy,
Yes, sir.
and you served in the Navy for 4 years.
Yes.
How long were you on a boat?
I wasn't on any boat. I was on ships. Actually, my first command was a fleet oiler. Got aboard her in 1976, and then went to a tin can in '77, and was there till I got discharged.
Thank you for your service. I just learned a lesson. Also, we have Nanette Molina with us today. Nanette is a United States Army veteran, served 1978 to 85, and she was, upon her discharge, a non-commissioned officer E5, and you were a non-Morris intercept operator.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what that job entails.
It's military intelligence, the
So-
biggest oxymoron.
Don't give me one of these, if I tell you I got to kill you type thing. Huh?
I was stationed in West Berlin, Germany.
Wonderful, wonderful. We got a
Yeah.
few here that were stationed in Germany for quite some time.
Yes,
Um,
and I also worked at the NSA in Fort Meade.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did.
So did you learn to speak German?
No, but I'm German heritage.
We're glad to
Not
have you with us, and
that
thank
many,
you
but-
for your service, very much so.
Thank you.
Nanette sent me a Facebook message this week, I guess, early this week, asking me about our program here and a little bit of the information on details. Did you pick up on that from my postings on R.E.D Friday?
Some of them, but mostly from Nancy Fassbender
Beautiful. Fine lady.
and Chuck Byers.
Fine lady. Thank you for joining us. Also, we have Ronald West. Ronald, where are you? Way back here in the back. Ronald, you're a United States Army veteran, 1967 through 1970. And you were 11 Bravo,
Yes, sir.
infantry, ground pounder.
Yes, sir.
So you were in during a very heated period of time in Vietnam.
Yes, sir.
You served in Vietnam?
Yes, I did, 6 months. Then I got wounded and sent home.
We've got a lot of Vietnam veterans here. We've got quite a few veterans that earned that Purple Heart. So thank you for your service, and thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Can I have a hoo-ah for these guests? Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, all of us veterans have memories of our time in uniform, and we often reflect on many of our experiences, especially the more humorous events that we can recall. And I thought that I'd share one of those memories with you this morning. Some years ago, my battalion attended a combined arms training exercise in Cheyenne, Wyoming, home of the United States Army's 115th Field Artillery Brigade, known as Cowboy Thunder. And believe me, there are a bunch of cowboys in the state of Wyoming. The training exercise consisted of battalion-sized units from the Army's combat arms, including artillery, armor, and infantry, and an Air Force Special Operations Wing to provide close air support, precision strike, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. A detachment of United States Marine Corps Raiders, including a few Navy hospital corpsmen that are all part of the Marine Corps Special Operations Command. The exercise was deemed quite successful, and there were many lessons learned, as you might expect of an operation of that scale. Well, at the conclusion of the field exercise, there were 3 days of very intense classroom after-action reviews. But thank goodness, our evenings were free. So on a couple of those free evenings, a group of us Army non-commissioned officers would drive into Cheyenne for a big steak dinner, and then we'd head over to a local pub for a few after-dinner pops. Well, on our first night's outing, after a fabulous steak dinner, we headed over to this local Cheyenne pub, and we were sitting at a large round table enjoying each other's company while downing some cold tap beer. And seated over at the bar were a half dozen of those Marine Corps Raiders. Now, all of us service members were putting away a lot of beer. Mugs of beer, to be honest. And the volume of liquid consumption prompted each of us Army running buddies to mosey over to the head numerous times while we were there. And on one of my return trips from the head, one of my Army buddies leaned over and said, have you noticed that in the 2 hours that we've been sitting here, not even one of those Marines has gotten up and gone to the head? Not even one. He said, how can they possibly drink all that beer and not relieve themselves? Well, that inquiry prompted my group to be a bit more observative. Sure as heck, the Marines kept on pouring down the beer. Not even one of them left the bar to go to the head. I remember making the comment to my group that it is humanly impossible for a man to consume that much beer and not relieve himself. Well, around midnight, just before the bar was scheduled to close, the entire group of Marines got up and headed for the door. And as I looked back over the empty bar, I finally realized why those guys never left their stools. That's my kind of bar. You know, the singular mission of this Red Friday group is to demonstrate our collective support for the men and women of the United States Uniformed Services who are currently deployed. Men and women who have sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, domestic and foreign. It's an honorable charter, and one that each of us has gladly embraced. Remember, everyone deployed. Therefore, I think it's important that we stay abreast of military deployments, especially those with elevated risk for the safety and security of our troops. Well, to no one's surprise, such a scenario currently exists in the Middle East. And this Red Friday support group would be well served to stay abreast of what's transpiring in that region of the world. Things are heating up very rapidly there. It's a region ripe with turmoil and violence that continues to escalate, and it poses a significant threat to both U.S. personnel operating in the region and our allies. So, let's explore what's transpiring there in the Middle East that has the U.S. and our allies on edge again. I'm confident that most of you learned last week via newscast that the U.S. has deployed a U.S. Army air defense artillery battery of 100 troops to Israel. By the way, an Army artillery battery is about the size of an infantry company, roughly 100 or more troops. The deployed battery will be responsible for managing a weapon systems referred to as a Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, acronym THAAD. THAAD is an advanced U.S. anti-missile system. This is a short clip on how the THAAD missile works. So that kind of gives you a little idea about, go ahead, next, there you go. That kind of gives you an idea about exactly how a THAAD works in simplicity. It's designed to shoot down short, medium, and intermediate range ballistic missiles in their final phase of flight by intercepting with a hit and kill approach. This missile has a speed of 6,300 miles per hour and is powered by a single stage rocket. It has a flight ceiling of 93 to 124 miles above Earth's atmosphere. THAAD has an operational range, the basic missile, of 120 miles, the extended range 3 times that. It can be extended substantially with that extended range rocket. It's guided by an infrared seeker head. These missiles weigh about 2,000 pounds, in other words, 1 ton. They're about 20 feet long, 15 inches in diameter, and there are much larger THAAD missiles currently in development. Now, the THAAD interceptor does not have a warhead. Instead, the missile relies on its kinetic energy to impact and destroy the incoming missile rather than using proximity detonation. It is totally kinetic energy. Modern THAAD missile systems are extraordinarily accurate, with a near perfect success rate in testing. To my knowledge, a THAAD interceptor has been deployed in only 1 actual threat situation, and that was in the United Arab Emirates back in January of 2022, when a THAAD missile successfully intercepted a Houthi ballistic missile attack targeting an oil facility near a United Arab Emirates Air Force base. Here is a more detailed example of how THAAD interceptor missiles work. Well, no doubt it's a phenomenal weapon systems, but phenomenal weapon systems don't come cheap. The delivered cost is $12.6 million per missile, not $12.6 million per launcher system, but $12.6 million per missile. When I learned that, I thought someone had spiked my drink. So, with 8 missiles mounted on a single launcher, that's a cost of $101 million just in missiles alone. That does not include the vehicles, the radar, nor all the ancillary equipment required to launch the missiles. In fact, the reported cost to equip a battery of 6 truck-mounted launchers with radar and all the support equipment is $1.25 billion to $3 billion. That's a lot of money. What you see on the graphic is $1 billion in $100 bills. So these systems do not come cheap. Now, of note is that there are only 9 THAAD batteries scattered around the world. Of those 9, 7 of them are assigned to the U.S. Army. We know that Army's THAAD batteries are currently deployed in Guam and South Korea, as well as other locations the Defense Department will not identify. And the battery that has been ordered to Israel presumably would be among those 7 assigned to the Army. You know, a U.S. military deployment to Israel is rather rare outside of joint drills, given Israel's own exceptional military capabilities. Historically, a high level of tension exists in that region, so adding fuel to the fire by physically putting boots on the ground has not really been an option that the United States has necessarily wanted to pursue. Agitation has consequences. We know that all too well. That said, it's reported that the United States does have a classified base in Israel, codenamed Site 512. And apparently it's been operative for some time. Site 512 is believed to house a radar surveillance systems that can detect and track long-range ballistic missile threats against the United States that might come from China, Russia, or North Korea, or track short-range ballistic missile threats against U.S. installations in the Middle Eastern region. So, when Israel came under Iranian attack recently, U.S. troops have aided Israel's defense. Not by ground troops, but from warships and fighter jets positioned in the Middle East, based outside of Israel's borders. I think it will be interesting to learn how Iran and their proxies reacts to U.S. troops now having boots on the ground in Israel. Naturally, Iran has already published a warning to the U.S. about this action, and they're not just saber rattling, they're saber clanging now. Now, as one might expect, the United States maintains a considerable military presence in the Middle East, with forces in more than a dozen countries and on ships throughout the region's waters. That presence has expanded substantially this year as the United States focuses on deterring and defeating threats from Iran and its network of armed affiliates in the region. And that would include Hamas in the Gaza Strip, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and several Iraq and Syria-based militant groups. Since the October 2023 outbreak of war between Hamas and the U.S. forces in the Middle East, there have been increasingly targeted U.S. installations by some of these groups. The U.S. has responded with counterattacks. Meanwhile, both the U.S. and coalition ships have been protecting merchant shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, defending against almost daily Houthi drone and missile attacks. In total, the United States has military facilities across that region at least 19 sites. 8 of them are considered to be permanent in countries included Bahrain, Egypt, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, and the United Arab Emirates. Our military also uses large bases in Turkey and Djibouti. These are part of other regional commands, but they often contribute significantly to U.S. operations within the Middle East. The U.S. has recently further increased its military presence in the Middle East by several thousand troops. And we've deployed an array of fighter jets and other types of aircraft to beef up our protection there. That bolster in strength brings the total number of American troops in the region to over 43,000, including more than a dozen warships. Israel's latest surge in attacks in Lebanon, including strikes that have killed Iran-backed Hezbollah leaders, has brought about a very significant escalation in the conflict. And that has raised fears of all-out war in the Middle East. Now, as a result, the United States Defense Secretary has increased readiness levels both at home and abroad. So they are prepared to deploy for any contingency in the Middle East, with Defense Department priorities being: one, the protection of U.S. citizens and U.S. forces within the Middle East region; two, the defense of Israel; and three, the de-escalation of the situation through deterrence and diplomacy. Now, a sudden large-scale American force assembled within that region might be effective as a deterrent to an all-out war in the Middle East. Deterrence often works. It's like seeing a highway patrolman alongside a road. Your instinct is to slow down and pray he didn't catch you speeding. That's deterrence. But I really don't know how well that diplomacy thingy will work, given our history in the region of failed diplomatic relations. So here's a look at the current U.S. military presence in the Middle East. Currently have 43,000 armed forces personnel in that region. Navy warships are scattered across the region from the eastern Mediterranean Sea to the Gulf of Oman, and both Air Force and Navy fighter jets are strategically based at several locations to be better prepared to respond to any attacks. The U.S. has one aircraft carrier in the region, the USS Abraham Lincoln, and a second carrier, the USS Harry S. Truman, along with two destroyers and a cruiser, which are now on their way to the Mediterranean Sea. We have 5 destroyers positioned in the Red Sea, and the USS Georgia guided missile submarine arrived there last month. There are 6 warships in the eastern Mediterranean Sea, including the USS Wasp, which is an amphibious assault ship housing the 26th Marine Expeditionary Unit, and 2 accompanying vessels plus 3 Navy destroyers. The United States has 4 land-based fighter squadrons in the region, but the Air Force is not identifying what country the planes are operating from. The squadrons will be used to defend U.S. forces and Israel if necessary. So, from what you've learned now, I would have to think you'd agree that our presence in the region is not only substantial, but our forces positioned there are very capable of delivering massive lethality if necessary. Hopefully, it will not be necessary to call upon those resources. Now, have any of you ever heard the phrase, "I'm your huckleberry"? Well, if you saw the movie Tombstone which was released back in 1993, starred Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Sam Elliott, and just a plethora of talented actors. You'll definitely recall that phrase, "I'm your huckleberry." The phrase instantly became iconic. Val Kilmer, who played the role of Doc Holliday, actually repeated that phrase twice in the movie when confronting Johnny Ringo, who was played by Michael Biehn. But the phrase is actually said to have been spoken by the real Doc Holliday. And it's a phrase that means, "I'm the right person for the job," or "I'm your man," or "I'm well suited for a particular challenge, especially in a gunfight." Well, I don't know about you, but I believe Israel is well equipped to step up to the plate and effectively handle most any challenge or threat to their sovereignty. And recently, they have all but said to Iran and other regional sponsors of terrorism, "I'm your huckleberry." Guests, thank you for joining us today. We are absolutely grateful to have you here and hope that you'll be able to return. I do have a couple of announcements that I would like to make. Tomorrow, right here at American Legion Post 27, there will be a veteran stand-down. They're going to have all kinds of agencies and representatives here that support veterans and veteran initiatives. That will take place between noon and 4 p.m. tomorrow. You'll have VA healthcare reps, VA representatives, Arizona Veterans Benefit counselors, veteran service organizations, community support groups, and many others. So if you personally, or if you have a friend, neighbor, or relative that you would like to explore some of these veteran-related topics, and especially as it would pertain to any type of veteran benefits, I would encourage you to be here tomorrow, noon to 4. Also, again, I want to remind you that we have guest speakers that are going to be scheduled throughout the month of the latter part of October, November, and December. I implore you to attend these meetings and support our guest speakers. One of these upcoming speakers will be Tom Kirk. Tom Kirk spent 5.5 years as the prisoner of war in Vietnam, Hanoi Hilton. He's the author of A Life Story of Hits, Misses, and Wins. And I'll put this out in my follow-up email. I would encourage you to read that book before you come in for his presentation. I think it would be absolutely infatuating for you to see some of his comments about his experiences at the Hanoi Hilton. You can order that book online on Amazon, and I would encourage you to order that prior to Tom joining us back in November. Please don't forget our mission here. It's a very, very important and honorable mission. And I thank you for supporting that mission. Remember, everyone deployed. You guys have a wonderful weekend. Thank you very much.